Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio, KIDOTalkRadio.com. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joined now by our great friend Rachel Sutherland. And Rachel, how big was it that Andrew McCabe had to go, and did he go so voluntarily?
It doesn't look like he went voluntarily. Our reporting seems to suggest that he was pretty much pushed out. And because he was set to retire anyway in March, so he's on something called terminal leave. I guess it means he'll be sitting around at home, really getting paid, and he's going to collect his benefits and everything, it appears. And this comes right after the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray, went and read this 4-page memo, which is going to be, it appears, released soon. The White House is reviewing it, but it's pretty clear that they want this out. It seems to allege some very caustic things that the government, highest levels of government, used spying apparatus in the nation to spy on the Trump campaign, specifically Carter Page. And so if this is true, this could be explosive. And here's why. It's not so much if the government had some kind of evidence that Russia was trying to interfere in our election that wasn't politically motivated, it was clear, then that would be one thing. But what is reportedly in this memo, and I haven't seen the memo, it is top secret, that the Obama administration essentially went to the FISA court and said, here's this dossier. And the trouble is, the dossier was, we've learned, funded by the Clinton campaign and Democrats. So what this could mean, I mean, I'm not a legal expert, I'm not a lawyer, but this appears to be, if it's true, an egregious abuse of power.
I wonder how long before the memo will be leaked before it's released.
Well, it's in a way, it's kind of funny, Kevin, because in a way it's being leaked. In fact, Congressman Trey Gowdy, I'm not accusing him of being a leaker. He was just on Fox and Friends, and I played his audio on the radio, so, I mean, I'm not accusing him of being a leaker. But he said something to the effect of, well, if you want to, if you're interested to hear how this scenario that I just described happened, you might want to see this memo. It just sounds to me, I mean, we haven't seen the text of the memo, but a lot of people are out there talking about what's purported to be in it.
I'm with you on that. And now we have the Democrats saying they have another memo, but we don't know what's in it. They voted not to release it, but no one knows what's in it. Everybody seems to know what's in this memo that we believe will be released.
Right. Dueling memos.
Right.
Well, exactly. The Democrats have a rebuttal memo. So it would provide, they say, more context to the Republican memo. And Trey Gowdy, interestingly, I don't know if he's the only Republican to vote to release that too. He said, look, I mean, people can make up their own minds on things. Everything should be out there. And as a journalist, that would seem to be a good idea to have everything out there, because what they're going to say, and what Democrats are already saying, is that this is a Republican attempt to really smear the special counsel's office and the whole Russia probe. And some have even called it brainwashing. Now, I think that's going a bit far. People can make up their own minds as to what they think. You can't be brainwashed. I mean, a memo floating around out there is I don't know how you can liken that to brainwashing, because that's an involuntary kind of thing. But this is really, I think, the Russia probe coming to almost a climax, I would say. This is really fascinating.
Indeed. And, of course, on the other hand, you don't know if the special prosecutor will get his wish, which has been rumored, and interview the president.
Right. And this comes at that time when they've been going back and forth and negotiating as to what an interview would look like. Now, people who are close to President Trump know that he kind of veers off and, right? So, I mean, and has sometimes his own version of the truth. Let's face it. So he can sit, and I don't know. I mean, some people say, oh, well, President Trump lies. If you watch him, I think he believes every word that's coming out of his mouth. So he could sit there and really mess up in front of the special counsel. So they're really looking at ways that they can limit his exposure moving forward. And it looks like the investigation will come to a conclusion sooner rather than later. But you will have these dueling narratives out there as to what went on. And bottom line, even if Mueller came out and found something, it's up to now this Republican-controlled Congress to do anything about it. And the only way that changes is if something changes in the midterms.
Rachel Sutherland, to be continued. Thank you.
Thanks.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. We go to the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Bob, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today?
Not bad, and you?
Well, I'm just as chipper as can be. But
Chipper.
I'd like to know, could you tell me why we're the only state that does not allow breastfeeding for babies in public, yet we allow the killing of babies through the abortion laws? Kind of makes you wonder who's making our laws.
Well, I don't think we're the only state that allows abortion.
Of course not. But why would you allow one and not the other?
You really believe, and this is from a story that we've been talking about earlier, you really believe that we need a law protecting mothers from being prosecuted for breastfeeding in public for indecent exposure?
In this politically correct world, I would probably say yes.
See, I would argue that the exact opposite, because we are so overly politically correct, that wouldn't happen. I can remember many years ago, in another time, another station, another state, this would be a fun topic instead of a serious one.
Well, you've seen all of the weird stuff that's been going on. I'm sure that this is just one more of those weird things that would make your hair stand up.
But do we really
Anyway.
need, in your heart of hearts, do we really need a law? I mean, are we opening up the paddy wagon and throwing in breastfeeding mothers?
Yeah, probably. You know, they arrest you for almost anything nowadays.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh, I do.
I think you've been hanging out with Tom Munns too much.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's my problem. You know, at least we're going to see our conservative legislators gain some ground in many areas, which we're already taking a look at legislatively. And with a little luck, maybe we'll take over 5 or 6 more seats in the House and the Senate in the upcoming elections. Speaking of elections, we will end our poll for the first CD today. And so far, the results are pretty interesting, with Fulcher with 63.33%, David Leroy with 3.33%, Luke Malik with 5%, Christy Perry with 2.33%, Michael Snyder with 11.67, running second, Nick Henderson with 10.33, and only 4% undecided. So, looks kind of like we got a leader here.
Right, in your ever objective poll.
Hey, listen, this is not fixed. This poll is not fixed. This is purely objective, and it's probably one of the few polls out there that only allows you to vote once.
Well, some people need the hits.
I'm not going to say anything for that one. I'm looking forward to seeing you tonight and spending a little time at the State of the Union party. So we'll see you around 6:45 when we can have some fun.
Look forward to it, my friend. Take care.
Thank you. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend, Tea Party Bob. Let's go to Max in Garden City with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Good morning, buddy. How you doing?
Living the dream, and you?
I'll tell you, just definitely living the dream in Idaho, the land of the temporarily free. I'm going to come out of left field here with five ideas that would help make America and Idaho better. They all involve a 1-year moratorium, a moratorium on any and all new legislation. No bills can be passed, no laws can be made for 1 year. Would that be cool?
Sure.
How about a 1-year goal to reduce existing legislation by 50%?
Okay.
How about a 1-year goal for 1 year, total governmental transparency?
Well, that's easier said than done.
Well, I know. I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not too serious, but I think they're good ideas. How about a 1-year audit of all the government books on a federal and state level? Let's see exactly what our legislature is spending. They take it from our pockets at gunpoint. What are they doing with it? and the other is a 1-year elimination, 1-year suspension of all corporate taxes. Look what happened to the economy with a 9-point reduction. What do you think would happen if we just said, you know what, no corporate tax for 1 year? This country's economy would explode. We would need immigration just to fill the jobs.
Well, I think we have a little too many immigrants right now coming
Oh,
in.
no. Okay, there's a confusion here. You hear people use the word illegal immigrant, and there's really no such thing. They're illegal aliens.
Well, that's what they used to call them, yes.
Well, we're slowly softening the terms. Again, just in China, you overstay your visa by even 1 day, and they put a team of people out to find you.
They'll get you in the Huskow.
Well, they'll beat you down, freeze your assets, and throw you out. Now, I don't say we do that. That's crazy talk. But we need, let's call them what they are. They're illegal aliens. My wife is an immigrant, okay? We had a lawyer. It took 2 years. We paid a lot of money. We crossed our T's, dotted our I's. She's an immigrant. When they slip in over the border or overstay a visa, they're criminals. They're aliens. Let's call it a
Here,
spade
you're
a spade.
being insensitive.
Oh, I'm incredibly insensitive. At my age, I have a right to be. I'm not surrounded by a bunch of PC millennials whining over this and whining over that.
Wow.
When did we become a nation of crybabies? Holy cow. Thin-skinned, hard-hearted whiners. But that's my opinion, and we're all entitled to our own. Kevin, thank you for letting me speak my ugly piece.
Now, before you go, though,
Yes.
do we need a law protecting breastfeeding mothers
Well,
in the state
do
of
we have-
Idaho? Are we prosecuting breastfeeding mothers?
Well, if we're not prosecuting, if there's no room to prosecute, we don't need a law unless we have obvious cases where they're being criminally prosecuted. I'm not aware of any law that prosecutes breastfeeding mothers, but I'm not a lawyer.
Wow.
You know, I'm saying we needed a law to say drive on the right side of the road. Everybody on the right side of the road. We needed that. We didn't need a seatbelt law. We needed laws for certain reasons, but do we need a law? Only if somebody is openly, criminally prosecuting these women or if they're being persecuted. But again, women must also breastfeed in a modest fashion. You don't just rip off your blouse and feed your baby right there and flash your boobs in public.
Now,
There
how would
are-
you know how to breastfeed?
Well, having 5 kids, I've seen it done.
Right, but you've never.
No, but I've watched my wife, and she's shown me a very modest way of feeding the baby.
Maybe that should be put into the law.
No, we don't need a law unless there's an obvious and present need. You know what? If there's a clear and present danger to the safety or well-being of an individual, then we need to consider a law. That's the only time. I don't have enough information or knowledge to say we should or shouldn't, because I'm not aware of the record of prosecutions or persecutions.
I know there's a very active breastfeeding community.
Oh, yeah, there's a radical breastfeeding community, too. Sure there is. But again, there's a limit here. You know, you can open your jacket and put a little blanket across your little shawl and feed your baby.
Well, I don't know. I don't know why people would want to
That's
do it.
fine.
I don't know why they would want to do it in public anyway.
Well, then that's true, too. They rarely, well, our kids, they were all breastfed. And I'm trying to think of, there was one time in church, in the choir room, in the back, that one of my kids was breastfed. You know? It's insane. I think we're just looking at too many little things when we should be looking at bigger things. But, you know, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
Well, that's what
I'll
I
be
hear.
wrong again.
That's what I hear all the time about you.
Well, it's true. But if you read my books, you'll think I'm right. You'll agree with me. Cheap plug. Eyes on China. Paper Dragon. Look how the Chinese handle breastfeeding.
And look how the Chinese handle people that have overstayed their welcome. Max, thank you.
You better believe it. Thank you, buddy.
All right. 580-5436-580 KIDO. Coming up next, one company, just one company itself, is going to invest $50 billion in America over the next 5 years. You can't tell me that's not going to help with jobs and raising our standard of living. We'll tell you who they are next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. And we take a look at, just the wranglings going on in Washington. And you have to wonder about the Me Too movement, whether or not it's going to stop. And one of the biggest critics of the president has to be Democrat Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York. She was on The View. Let's hear what she had to say.
First, he has multiple allegations, dozens of allegations, over a dozen allegations of sexual assault and sexual harassment. He should resign.
There's some inconvenient truths on both sides. Reportedly, Hillary Clinton is under fire for covering up for a top advisor who was accused of sexual harassment back in 2007. Do you think her response this weekend was appropriate?
Well, as you know.
Meghan McCain becoming a conservative on The View. What about Hillary Clinton?
Oh, I think these things have to be dealt with, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican. You need transparency and accountability, and no one is above criticism. But in that case, I don't know all the details.
And that's why a lot of people were really surprised that it took you 20 years to say that Bill Clinton should have resigned over the Lewinsky scandal. So what do you say to that?
I think this moment of time we're in is very different.
Can I ask you, do you regret campaigning with him, though?
It's not about any one president, and it's not about any one industry. And if we reduce it to that, we are missing the opportunity to allow women to be heard, to allow women to have accountability and transparency.
That's the challenge, and that's the problem with folks like The View. One more time here. Well, first, let's get you to traffic and weather together. Let's go back to this one more time from The View.
Talk about Trump first. He has multiple allegations, dozens of allegations, over a dozen allegations of sexual assault and sexual harassment. He should resign.
There's some inconvenient truths on both sides. Reportedly, Hillary Clinton is under fire for covering up for a top advisor who was accused of sexual harassment back in 2007. Do you think her response this weekend was appropriate?
Well, as you know, I think these things have to be dealt with, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican. You need transparency and accountability, and no one is above criticism. But in that case, I don't know all the details.
And that's why a lot of people were really surprised that it took you 20 years to say that Bill Clinton should have resigned over the Lewinsky scandal. So what do you say to that?
I think this moment of time we're in is very different.
Can I ask you, do you regret campaigning with him, though?
It's not about any one president, and it's not about any one industry. And if we reduce it to that, we are missing the opportunity to allow women to be heard, to allow women to have accountability and transparency, and to allow women to have justice.
There we have it, to allow women to have justice. So Donald Trump bad, Bill Clinton good. That's really the hypocrisy there of the liberal progressive movement. I mean, sexual harassment, sexual assault knows no party lines, knows no partisanship, right? I mean, that's really the lesson that Meghan McCain was trying to teach this senator, by the way, who owes her political livelihood to Hillary Clinton because she took her seat when Hillary Clinton didn't win the 2008 nomination, of course. So what is she going to do? She's going to sit back and, do her own thing and make sure that, of course, she protects Bill Clinton after 20 years of the Lewinsky scandal. And remember, what you did in your private life didn't matter on, as long as your public life was fine. Remember that? Remember that issue? That it was okay to do that? No, it's not okay. It never is okay. And until you take a look at things objectively through the lens of a nonpartisan perspective, the Democrats are going to continue to have this problem, right? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up, something different. We're going to take a look at, an event that doesn't happen quite that often. We're going to talk to NASA next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
California Assembly Majority Leader Ian Calderon has introduced a bill that says restaurants cannot offer you a straw. You have to request one. He says it's not a ban, it's to raise awareness about single-use plastic items that can't be recycled, like straws. He wants people to change their behaviors. But he's run into some criticism because the bill says restaurants and waiters could be fined if they do give you an unsolicited straw. Calderon says penalties are based on the code section the bill is currently in, and it will be amended out of that section at a later time. He also said 500 million straws are used in the U.S. every day, and the statistical analysis used to arrive at that number is being heavily questioned. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
And again, we talked a little bit about this before. I guess we should just call this the Thank Goodness We Live in Idaho segment for people the good people that are leaving California. Not the libs, but the good people. Well, I guess there are good libs. You can agree to disagree on things. For the good people that are leaving California, this is the reason why. A state that is bankrupt, a state that can't pay its own expenses, one of the most prosperous states in the country, and one of the most beautiful states in the world, where you can ski and golf at the same time, same day. The beautiful people of Hollywood, San Diego. And all of a sudden, they're going to criminalize people being offered a straw. Why are they doing that? Well, because, we've got too many straws on the road. We've got too many straws that are, just destroying the environment. We've got too many straws. I mean, how ridiculous is this? This is the same type of philosophy that gave us the spotted owl. And look, I love animals. I love the wildlife, and we should do what we can to protect them. But there's a pecking order, right? And at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, when we start putting squirrels and owls in straws ahead of people and ranchers and farmers, well, then we have serious consequences, right? We have issues that are beyond repair. And by the way, could you imagine being a waiter and you offer someone a straw? The person that you're serving turns you in, and you have to pay the fine of $1,000. $1,000. Now, there are people that have misdemeanors and other things that don't have to pay a fine of $1,000. Your thoughts at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I'd like to get your reaction to this. And again, thank goodness we live in Idaho. Joining us now from NASA. Boy, something's wrong with this phone. Noah Petro. Noah, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Thank you for joining us here in Idaho. So we've got this big event coming up, the Super Blue Blood Moon. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is a once-in-a-decade opportunity for people to see a supermoon lunar eclipse on the blue moon. Now, in sort of different order, the eclipse is the real interesting event here, where the moon will pass into the Earth's shadow and turn that beautiful red color. Folks that may have experienced the solar eclipse last year will be used to the sort of celestial alignment of the Earth, moon, and sun. This is when the Earth is going to pass between the moon and the sun this time, and that'll happen in the early hours tomorrow morning.
So what's the best day to watch this blood moon?
So, yeah, I would suggest that people get up early to watch it, as long as it's clear. You find a spot that has a clear view of the the western sky, because this will be happening as the moon is setting, away from tall buildings, tall trees, bright lights, and get out and look. You probably want to be up around 4 to 5 a.m. to see it happen. Again, this will be going as the moon is starting to set. But should be a beautiful show.
When we take a look at what does it mean for the spacecrafts that are out? Does that do anything?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, because right now we've got a spacecraft orbiting the moon right now, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and we charge the batteries on that spacecraft from solar power. And so normally the spacecraft spends an hour in sunlight, an hour in darkness as it orbits the moon. But during an eclipse, we're blocked from the sun for over 3 hours. That's a very unusual event. For anybody who, like me, is unaccustomed to being away from a charger for your cell phone for long periods of time, it's sort of a similar situation. We just going to turn everything off on the spacecraft so that the battery doesn't drain, heat up the spacecraft so it stays warm, because as it's in the shadow, it'll be very cold. And then after the eclipse is over, turn everything back on. So it's something we pay attention to. We take good care of the spacecraft. been orbiting the moon now for 8 years, and so we want to make sure that we can orbit for several more years. And so we take great care during these events to make sure that everything is safe and sound.
Do we have any idea, I'm sure you do at NASA, but, just how much our atmosphere protects us from the rays of the sun, and you have to take that into consideration when you launch these spacecrafts?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, space is a harsh environment. Not only do you have intense UV radiation light from the sun, you also have galactic cosmic rays and other radiation that are constantly bombarding spacecraft with nasty stuff. So you have to take great care to protect your spacecraft, any sensitive equipment. But yeah, it should remind us all that the Earth is a really wonderful place, that we're protected from radiation by our magnetic field and by small meteorites, by our atmosphere. The moon isn't so lucky, so we are actually seeing the effects of bombardment on the moon with small meteorites, small craters forming almost all the time on the lunar surface that we can actually see with our spacecraft now. So, our Earth does a great job of protecting us from the hazards of deep space.
Is that true that the most similar atmosphere to ours is on Venus?
Well, Venus has a very, very strong atmosphere, a very thick, dense atmosphere. If you're standing on the surface of Venus, it's the same pressure as being about a kilometer, or basically being on the ocean floor, about 93 times the pressure of the Earth. Titan has a very similar atmosphere to the Earth as well. Mars's atmosphere is much weaker than the Earth, but they're all, atmosphered planets. So it's actually wonderful that we have both the Earth with its beautiful atmosphere, which we love, and the moon with no atmosphere as a pair right here. So we can study both on the Earth and on the moon, both atmosphered and and atmosphereless bodies, basically, in the same neighborhood.
We just had a gentleman, Terry, say that this is the first time this has happened in 150 years.
Yeah, so, it's interesting because there's several different ways how to define when a blue moon occurs. Blue moon is 2 full moons in a month. And so the 150-year calculation doesn't take into account the time zone effect. Actually, the last time that this did occur was in 1982, but then you do have to go back 150 years for the last one before this. So it's a somewhat unusual event. The next time will be in 2027, and so it's definitely worth paying attention to and enjoying.
We take a look at the unmanned successes of NASA, and New York Times did a story a few months ago, and it was really a great piece on the Voyager program and really what that's meant to not only NASA but to the entire search through space. Your thoughts on Voyagers 1 and 2?
Yeah, so those are incredible spacecraft that are still operating today, which you've got to remember, we're still getting data back from these distant explorers that are pushing the boundaries of our solar system. And the fact that anything that was built, I'm almost 40 now. Before I was born, that's still operating in as we talked about before, the harsh environment of deep space is really remarkable, and still providing valuable scientific information. It gives me great hope that future deep space exploration is going to be similarly long-lived as well. And we're going to be preparing for the New Horizons mission to fly by a distant object on New Year's Day 2019. Hopefully folks will remember the success of its flyby of Pluto. And as these deep space explorers kind of push our boundaries of understanding, we'll certainly learn more about this wonderful solar system of ours.
Yeah, but can we even imagine the technology in the Voyagers?
Oh, yeah. It's simpler than what's in most people's, certainly way simpler than what's in anybody's cell phones right now. We landed on the moon with technology less advanced than what's in our cell phones, certainly with less memory than in our cell phones right now. So, I don't want to demean the Voyagers, but it's essentially, technology that we are now accustomed to in our microwave ovens is probably on par with what's in there. And that's just remarkable. And again, they're working off of very small amount of power, a very weak transmitter, and the fact that we can get a signal from them at all is remarkable.
Right, and it's nuclear powered, right? Uranium, is that right?
That's correct, yes. So that doesn't rely on solar power. The sun's far too weak at that distances that they're at now to power anything. So we're using the radioactive power sources to continue heating and operating those distant explorers.
Finally, we always hear about going back to the moon. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on that and people talking about going to Mars. How tough would that be?
So certainly, yeah, the exploration of Mars is going to be difficult. Not only will it be long in duration, but it will be in a hostile environment. Again, we've talked about, the deep space environment is not something that is easy to survive in. So we have to learn how to survive not only in the weightless environment of space, but also in the radiation environment of space. The wonderful thing about the moon is that it's only 3 days away. We have ample data now from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter mission, which has been at the moon now for 8 years, to identify safe and interesting landing sites. So we know where to go. We know what we would do there. It's a matter of learning how to do it again, how to work on a planetary body, and then eventually take those next steps deeper in our solar system.
I saw a series on HBO many years ago, and a lot of folks aren't aware of it. I thought it was brilliant. It was done by, I think, Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, From Earth to the Moon.
Oh, yeah, that is it's a great miniseries.
And they haven't brought that back. It's crazy in the world of streaming and stuff. You can get every season of, The Wire, but you can't get that one. And it really highlighted the engineers and everybody behind the scenes. Noah, as you look at where you are today, almost 40 years old, working at NASA, talking about the moon and everything else, can you imagine what those folks went through, the technology, the unknown, the fear of launching man first into orbit and then to the moon and back?
Yeah, I mean, the wonderful thing that miniseries does, as you point out, is tell the story of what it took for it to happen and be successful. And in less than 10 years, to go from the first American astronaut in space to landing humans on the moon in under 10 years, there had to be a lot of risk accepted and also a lot of creativity envisioned. Something that I'm always reminded by one of the moonwalkers, Harrison Schmitt, who is a geologist, reminds everyone that this was a young agency. NASA was full of young people who were doing this, who were too brave or stubborn to fail, and who really pushed the boundaries of what we could do. And I think we can learn a lot from that exercise of Apollo, Gemini, and Mercury to sort of view of what it'll take to do it again. It's going to take effort, time, money, and some risk as well. But the other thing, the wonderful thing that comes out of that miniseries, and I do hope that it's brought back in time for the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 next year, is that the science that was brought along as well. And there's some episodes of that, particularly the episode about Apollo 17 and Apollo 15, that really get into why the science was important, and a really key part of especially the later Apollo missions. And so when we turn our sights to go back to the moon, it's going to be not just for geopolitical reasons and exploration reasons, but also for scientific reasons.
Well, and it was such a different time because you had the race to the moon. Mm-hmm. Today, it's a very different vibe. It's more cooperative, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's still definitely, multiple countries are interested in getting back to the moon, going to the moon for the first time. We have the commercial aspect that there are now private partners who are interested in going to the lunar surface. So there is that cooperation. But, I firmly believe that when the first humans of this century get to the lunar surface, that will be a moment of incredible national pride for whomever does that. I certainly hope that it becomes clear that the U.S. is willing and able to make that investment, because it's going to take time and money in order to do it. But once we are able to do it, we'll be able to do it safely and maximize the science that we get out of it.
Finally, like the 17th time, Noah, I would just appreciate you speaking with us here from NASA here at KIDO Talk Radio, but the idea of colonizing the moon. Mm-hmm. You think that'll be a reality? Well,
I mean, I think a reality eventually. I mean, reality in my lifetime, my children's lifetime, I'm not sure, because that's going to, again, be an incredible investment. And there's also going to have to be a willingness to really push the boundaries of human endurance. Living on the moon, your bodies are going to have to adapt rather easily. It'll probably be to adapt to 1/6 gravity, but we also have to then define what it means to be a colony. Is it a long-lived, permanently inhabited station on the lunar surface? Is it a place that people live for months at a time? Sort of the space station model where you have crews interchanging periodically, or is it something that's more, staffed for a month and then left empty for a while? It really will depend on our definition. But I think it's definitely something that we could take the first steps to in our lifetime of building that permanent presence on the lunar surface. We know where we can go. We know where there's resources. We know where we can build, solar collectors to harness the sun's power for energy. It's just a matter of getting the resources together to do it.
Noah, thank you. We really appreciate you. Take care.
Oh, my pleasure. Enjoy the eclipse, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, bye now.
Oh, Petro joining us from NASA. Huge interview. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. No, just for a minute there, I thought we were the George Norrie Show. By the way, we love Coast to Coast AM with us here at KIDO Talk Radio. I thought we were going to talk about the shadow people for a minute. Traffic and weather together. You know, as we've discussed, something to really look out for coming up is this release of this memo from the House Judiciary Committee. Now, the president is expected to authorize its release, and then we'll have 3 or 4 days, and then we'll actually see if there were any concrete examples of bias against candidate Trump. And that's what scares the heck out of everybody because, again, Trump was not supposed to win. Here's Representative Jordan.
He can go thumbs up or thumbs down. I think he'll go thumbs up. Let every journalist in the country see it. More importantly, let every American see this memo. If he goes thumbs up, in 5 days it's public, and then the American people can see it, which I think it will speak for itself.
Of course, he has seen the bill. Other news of note, the state of California going to fine restaurants if this bill gets through the assembly, the legislature there. $1,000 for what? For bad service? For ignoring a customer? For a bad meal? No. For saying to someone, would you like a straw? Not kidding. Hey, would you like a straw? Bing! Now, if you're sitting down, you can request a straw, but the reason why they have this anti-straw bias is because straws cause a lot of damage to the environment. Straws cause a lot of damage to the environment, apparently. Apparently, there are more straws on the highway and byways of the state of California that it's time to come up with this anti-straw legislation. Can you believe this? Maybe many of you that have lived in California understand what's going on and have fled and have come here to Idaho. Welcome to America. Talk about, certainly they have more important things to worry about in the state of California. I think it's crazy. What did you do? What fine did you get? Well, I offered somebody a straw. And it's the same thing that we've been seeing when it comes to the environment here in Idaho. And more, not even just in Idaho, but the West. When you're looking at, we've got to save this person, we've got to save this animal. And look, I'm all about what our wonderful nonprofits do in the area, whether it's the Idaho Humane Society, whether it's the Old Canyon County Animal Shelter, the West Valley folks, or the people at the Meridian Canine Rescue, or the cat people, right? I love animals. In fact, I prefer animals to people. Most of us do. And if you don't, well, we've got issues. Maybe you have issues. Anyway, but when you take a look at the environment and we say, well, because of the spotted owl, we're going to limit a rancher's ability to feed their cattle, which eventually feed us. That shows you how out of whack certain government agencies are. We won't name them. Or when we take a look at the ability because of a squirrel that's happening here in the state of Idaho. Whoever becomes the governor, they're going to have to really address some big issues. The boondoggle that has been the HP campus purchase, the idea of the BLM and states' rights and the rights of ranchers and cattlemen and everything else. Are they continue to roll over? And, of course, the education issue. But back to this. When we're taking a look at the BLM coming in and, has been documented with the Hammonds, has been documented with the Bundys, has been documented with folks. Oh, and then I forgot the last challenge of you have the rich people moving in from Texas with their oil money and buying property and landlocking folks out of their own property and saying, I'm sorry, you can't use this. I own it all. It's going to take somebody who has enough guts to handle these issues. Obviously, the 4 candidates running for the Republican nomination want this, but they have to be willing to stand up and do something sometimes that may be unpopular in the eyes of the politically correct federal government. To be continued. Ray Amaya, great job as always. Appreciate you. Thank you all for listening. May God bless you and your family. And we mean it. Keep the faith.